Hey guys, it's BlockchainBrad, and today I'm very fortunate to speak with Ivan Poon. Ivan, thank you so much, mate, for coming onto the channel today.
Yep, it's my pleasure, Brett.
And if you are not familiar, Ivan Poon is the CEO or Chief Executive Officer of a very prominent company called Switcheo, which is all about the new DEX for certainly for Neo and for other exchanges as well. As other platforms as we see come to light in the future. But for now, Switcheo, that's the buzzword for your company. Let's find out a bit more about yourself, though, Ivan. You have done some quite interesting things. You're currently, obviously, the Chief Officer for Switcheo Network, but just recently you finished work as the Director of Payboy, which was quite interesting in itself. You were there for 2 years. Previously to that, or previous to that, you were working as the Chief Technical Officer for GuestSense. And you've also worked, in lead roles with Conjure Tech and CloudSec. So you've worked with many different companies in the last few years.
Yeah, so I'm an entrepreneur by nature and a startup owner. So what I usually, my role is usually a CTO role, as you can see. So previously, what I've done with, so I'm not the kind. I'm a guy that likes to do stuff that works. So if you see my profile, I did Payboy, I did Bumbox actually, which you didn't mention. So I think I had about 50% success rate in that sense, meaning that half of them I sold it off, or they are doing well in the sense that they generate recurring revenue for the company, for the directors and the shareholders.
I see.
Yeah. So for example, Payboy, the most recent one, it's a payroll software. So payroll software in payroll or HR software in general, it's kind of thing that people don't really like to touch. First of all, it's complicated. Every company has a different sort of way of doing things, sort of different way of giving time off, different way of processing claims.
Right.
So in general, the previous version, the SAP version, it's kind of like an Excel sheet where it's hard for both the employee to communicate with the employer, hard for the employer to communicate with the employee.
Okay.
So what we really try to do is to improve the UI, the UX for both the employee and the employer.
Okay. So essentially, you've been an entrepreneur. Is essentially what you're saying is you've worked in different startups to get to the point where you are now leading potentially a new DEX for the blockchain. So let's get into what we're here for, and that's to talk about Switcheo itself as a network. It explains when you were on the internet that you are the most advanced NEP5 decentralized exchange built for the Neo platform. So I wanted to ask you why you would argue that's the case. Why are you the most advanced?
First of all, there isn't. I'm sure that other viewers know that there's no DX currently out there. So by default, it's true. But that's not what we're trying to get at.
Okay.
What we really want is for our DX to be both decentralized and user friendly. To be the most user friendly possible decentralized exchange out there. So what we've been really working on is to do two things. One is we wanted the DX to feel very like a traditional exchange, but at the same time not use any centralized components. So if you look at Ether Delta, I think it's too far off towards the decentralized angle.
Okay, so just to qualify that, because you did mention there's no example currently, but many people do suggest that Ether Delta is actually a decentralized exchange. Are you arguing they're not?
No, I meant for the Neo platform.
Okay.
Sorry. Yeah, correct. So specifically for the Neo platform, that there isn't any out there. So one of the things that we want to do is we want to be the first mover for that. For Neo itself, the reason why we chose Neo is because I think it's a very good first start to have this kind of balance between good UX and proper decentralization. Because the Neo platform is fast. It has good transaction speed. It uses UTXO model, which it uses the UTXO model, basically like Bitcoin, which has advantages and disadvantages. But overall, I think it's a good platform to basically jumpstart our endeavor.
Does it surprise you that it hasn't been done yet, given that the Ether Delta platform has been existent for some time? And obviously, given that the popularity of Neo is certainly real around the world, why hasn't it been done yet, do you think?
So for the Neo platform in particular, if you really look at it, it's, although it has certain characteristics that makes it good. Like, that's why I say there's advantages and disadvantages. Advantage is that it has high transaction speed. It's that there isn't so many nodes that need to process every single transaction. The disadvantage is, of course, that because of the way that system assets or core assets, Neo and Gas, is moved around on the Neo platform, it's actually more challenging to build a fully decentralized exchange on Neo. For example, when you withdraw assets from the exchange itself, you actually need to schedule who is withdrawing at a certain time. You can't just like.
I see. So it's quite involved. I wanted to ask you though in that respect, because obviously you're an advocate for decentralization. But given the current node structure, obviously you know that there's currently 7 nodes within the overall Neo architecture, and it's going to change and become more decentralized. But is that one of the hindrances in itself? Is that the quasi-decentralized nature of Neo? Is that a challenge?
But technically, it's not really a challenge in terms of like building it.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, well that's good to know. If we could talk now about the essential problems that underpin the centralized exchanges, because obviously that's really important as a driver for your own enterprise and your own project. What do you see as the key problems with current centralized models of exchange?
Right. So I think eventually all centralized exchange will move towards decentralization, at least partially. So one of the reasons is that whenever I think the core issue is that centralized exchange fly in the face of this whole cryptocurrency, so blockchain movement, because you're saying that you want to hold your own assets, correct? You want to take charge of your own value. But then when you go ahead and trade or go ahead and exchange a certain token for another, you're basically giving up control of your funds back to another centralized exchange. And it's even worse than before, because you basically don't know who they are. They have most of the exchanges have no insurance, there's no guarantee, etc. Right. So I think it only makes sense that whatever you do with your assets, it should follow the same model. So, for example, if you have Ethereum and you want to swap it for Kyber tokens.
I see. So you're essentially saying to stay aligned with the philosophies that underpin the technology. Right. But what about the costs involved? For centralized mechanisms, isn't it cheaper to utilize a decentralized exchange when you do the comparative analysis?
Cheaper.
Because there's costs involved when you have to send your tokens across to a centralized exchange.
Correct, but in terms of computing cost itself...
what about economic costs just generally, in terms of token costs? Because it comes at a cost to the transferee, the person who's utilizing the exchange. So is there going to be economic benefits to utilize a decentralized exchange?
I think you have to count the externalities to this transfer, correct? For example, the risk involved in transferring it to the centralized exchange, as compared to keeping everything on chain. And then the other things also, when you transfer to a centralized exchange, there's confirmation time, there is delays, there are, and when you withdraw, there's what do you call it? There's a possibility that you will get delayed when you try to withdraw it.
I see. So there's a significant delay issue, but there's also often issues with wallets, having to go into a separate wallet before you make a transfer into a centralized exchange. It's quite a process for many people.
Right.
Will you be allaying that process?
Yeah, definitely. So for our decentralized exchange, I mean, every DX has their own model.
Right.
But for our DX, we will be able to trade directly from our wallet in a single transaction. So if you want to say, okay, I need some ONT tokens, I can just immediately swap it from Neo.
Right. One of the things I noticed in your white paper is that you outline issues of storage, and fees are another, but certainly the storage factor of centralized exchanges is one that you certainly do circumvent, because there's huge storage requisites on the centralized exchange. So how is it that you'll distribute this storage issue and obviously address it?
Storage? What do you mean by storage? Sorry.
Well, all centralized exchanges require huge amounts of storage in order to store the transactions that happen on their blockchain, or sorry, rather on their centralized exchange model. Whereas a decentralized model doesn't do that. They distribute their storage info and their data across the network. So surely you're addressing some of these storage issues, as is outlined in your own white paper.
Yeah. So regarding storage and specifically. So, I mean, it really depends what kind of storage you're talking about, right? If you're talking about the actual transactions where you send it into the exchange and then you withdraw it, that has to be on the blockchain. It's already taken care of by whatever fee model that the blockchain imposes on you. Mm-hmm. Regarding the actual transactions, certain blockchains track that as well, meaning that whenever you do any internal transfers from A to B, that's also persisted on the blockchain already. So there's nothing more you can do or nothing less that you can do.
Okay.
But for example, for Neo, certain things can be deleted. I mean, internal storage can be deleted, and in that case, what is generally done is that these internal transfers are tracked off-chain.
Right. Well, just in terms of your 4 core components, can you tell us more about those? They're obviously very important to your overall design. What are they, and can we talk about each one?
You're talking about the core operations, correct?
Your core components. So to start you off, you've got your front-facing user interface.
Right. Correct. So we have the way we build our DX is a bit different from what most people are actually moving towards, which is an off-chain kind of matching engine, and then you only do settlements on-chain. Mm-hmm. We didn't really like that idea because that actually cuts off. That's more like a centralized exchange that uses the blockchain as a security measure, as a way to let users control their funds. But it isn't decentralized in a different sense, which is that allows any client to interact directly with the contract itself. And that's the model that we are going for. And it is actually a harder model to build, because the more things that you have on-chain, the more attack vectors there are. There are more issues, like scaling issues you have to look out for.
Right. So you're going to be doing a lot more on-chain, is what you're saying, compared to some of those that are certainly coming to the market. Yes.
So for us, our UI actually communicates almost entirely with the first component, our UI component, Switcheo Exchange, which if you go to switcheo.exchange, you will see that. That interacts directly with the blockchain, the Neo blockchain currently. Mm-hmm. And
So how's your user interface, though, in terms of usability? Because that's one of the things you pride yourself on already, for being, the consumer's choice. So why would that be?
Yeah, so the UI, the way we build it, we actually followed centralized exchange very closely, and then we tried to emulate the design where possible. And the only places where we deviate is when the user needs to be aware that, hey, this thing, it's going to be confirmed in maybe 5 seconds or 10 seconds, and this has not been done immediately. And that's when we try to show it very prominently, the difference between the two. But other than that, we really want to go with what people already know, and then so you don't have to retrain them into doing different things or doing things differently.
Of course. And is there any prototype or demo that people can see of that design and that layout?
Yeah. If you go to https.switcheo.exchange, you can actually see our current prototype. It's on our testnet or our private net.
Okay.
Of course, because you don't have coins to change, there's no good way to test it out. Mm-hmm. But what we're doing is we're doing another contract that like basically distributes tokens to whoever wants to pay. Like,
so you're pretty confident that it's quite user-friendly. I think that's the main point.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, well, what about your custom blockchain nodes? I mean, that's another point that was raised in your core features.
Right, so that's what I was talking about earlier. For example, when you have transactions that are internal, and not locked on the blockchain directly, that's when you need custom, you need listener nodes basically to watch transactions happening, and then you record them down. And this is really, you don't really need it to use the DEX, but like I said previously, we wanted it to be similar to a centralized exchange, which has the entire history of your trades.
Okay.
And
now, also with regard to other DEXs, they've included some sort of ordering system. So you've got an off-chain order as well, order listing database. So how important is that off-chain listing database for your design?
I think that's more for performance. It's not critical in the sense that any client can actually read the order book on chain. So well,
it is listed as one of your core components, so surely it is more than something that isn't critical.
Right, it's critical in terms of user experience, but for the usage of the DEX itself, we don't want any critical component to be off chain at all in that sense. So if we go bankrupt tomorrow, the smart contract is still there. People can still trade it. You can just fork our whatever is online and then start using it. You don't have to have our private key to trade on the smart contract.
Okay. And what about your broker smart contracts? What's the distinction there and why are they important?
Right. So for the broker smart contract, that's actually the main contract, which is on chain, and that's where what everybody interacts with to do your deposit, trades, withdrawal. Yeah.
Okay, so that seems pretty important. And let's go down, I guess, into unpack the decentralized exchange itself. And let's talk about your partial filling, your auto retrying, and your order batching. Why are those three things important to the decentralized exchange model?
Correct. So, what was the first thing?
The partial filling.
Yeah, partial filling. So, so how this works is that because we don't use a centralized order matching engine, what happens is the client will actually try to contend on multiple offers that can meet the user's requirement. So meaning that it's at a price that's less than or equal to whatever he wants to make.
Okay.
And the smart contract itself will basically fill up as much as is required. And then, but it's basically not atomic. You don't have to fill the whole offer. You can fill like 1.5 offers of various people, and that make your own order.
So it suits the user in that sense. Okay. What about your auto retrying? How does that work?
Even when you do everything correctly, so what can still happen is that eventually a certain part of your offer might fail.
Mm-hmm.
So what you've done on the UI side is to basically have this off-chain retrying engine, which will keep retrying different possible offers, or if there are none left, it will just create a new offer at the wanted price.
Okay, so that's going to be automated, so the consumer doesn't have to constantly manually enter that in. That's interesting. And what about your order batching? What's the reference there?
So this is something we are researching on mainly. But what we're trying to do is to reduce the cost for the consumer by batching multiple trades into a single transaction.
Okay. That's interesting. And with regard to security as well, I noticed that there's a lot of references with regard to your smart contracts in terms of the security of funds. And there's a campaign that you're working on with the bug bounty campaign. Can you tell us a bit about that?
So we are almost ready to announce that. Probably by next week we'll have the full details. But basically, what we want is for people to examine our contracts, especially new developers who are experienced with the system. Because especially because the new platforms it's pretty new in the sense that there's no large or complicated contracts out there yet. So we really want to have this right so that people using our DEX are sure that their funds won't go missing. Yeah.
I think that's a great point. And just with regard to trade as well, obviously you're focused on being exclusive initially with the NEP5 trading platform. Is that one of your key functions at the moment, is being exclusive?
No, actually we are entrepreneurs and business people. So what we actually are already doing is actually looking at other blockchains, which is basically greenfield blockchains where they have ICOs, they have tokens, but they don't really have trading platforms on them.
Well, I'm glad you broached this because it was anomalous to me that in the title of your website that you're promoting yourselves as the first to really hit the Neo, to utilize Neo in this sense, and to decentralize, provide a decentralized exchange utilizing Neo and NEP5 tokens. But in fact, when I dug deeper, I found that you're really quite agnostic by design, and that you are actually looking at Ethereum, you're looking at Qtum, and you're looking at Stellar. So why is it that you wanted to focus so heavily for your promotion and for your design on in the NEP5? Because you are essentially not just for Neo.
So I guess it's a marketing kind of thing. Okay. Right now, the demand is really there for NEP5 tokens to be traded, because there's only a couple of centralized exchanges listing it. So we really want to go in with this first, do a very good job, and then start tackling the other blockchains, especially when the demand starts building up. So you're not a blockchain specific DEX. You want to build out and become, much like any other decentralized exchange, you become, prominent in the space, regardless. Correct.
And utilize. Okay, that's clear. If we could talk about Next, because this is the one thing that I hear a lot about with Switcheo. No doubt you do, and there's a lot of information on your website, so I do applaud you for addressing this. But many people want to know what the differences are between Switcheo and Next. The Neo, the City of Zion's version of a decentralized exchange.
So for Neo, for Next, I've read their white paper.
There's also facts on your website that address this specifically.
Yeah. So first of all, I think there are about 140 exchanges. You go to CoinMarketCap out there and take a look.
But specifically for Neo, I'm talking about.
Yeah, correct. So first of all, I think it should be clear that I don't think that it's a big issue for either of our teams to have two DEXs eventually on the Neo platform, because after all, there's 140 centralized exchanges out there, and they're all doing fine.
It's good that you know the numbers, but just to reference a statement made on your website, it says that you want to be have a stronger focus, and in specific relation to Next, you argue that you can have a stronger focus on the user experience, and that's what's going to set you apart. So could you tell us a bit about how is it that you are going to lead the way for user experience? Is that because of that interface you were discussing before?
Primarily because of that, and I mean. That's what we really want to do. That's what we are looking at every day. We are looking at how to scale. Let's say we get really popular, we are all completely on chain. So how do we make sure that users don't keep getting orders not filled or having to try it too often? But at the end of the day, I can't really make comparison at this point, at least with the Next platform, because we haven't seen it yet.
Right. Well, one of the key distinctions, obviously, is they're using a matching engine, an off-chain matching engine. You're not, so you've made some of those comparisons. But what do you think specifically is the real value in using more of the on-chain capacities than obviously Next are planning on doing? Because their argument is that they're actually freeing computational power and computational pressure, rather, by doing a lot of it off-chain. So what's the key reason, other than the ideologies behind decentralization?
Correct. I think one of the... So centralization is really decentralization is actually really at odds with scalability or how fast certain things can happen. So what we're trying to do here is really to find a balance, and our strongest advantage would be that we'll be able to interact with the rest of the ecosystem much more easily because at the end of the day, we are much more open platform, and eventually, basically whoever wants to use our smart contract will be able to use it, and then that helps liquidity. That helps how prominent we are in the whole field.
And one of the things that you pride yourselves on is also your marketability, which I wanted to talk to you about, because it's also explained in your website that that's going to be key to the success. And actually, the words are that the winner for the leading DEX will be one that has the best marketability. So what are you guys doing on that front?
All right. So I don't think I can talk too much about it right now, but we are really looking at, we are really talking to everyone else in the ecosystem. And because we are so open, I think you'll see both our token and our exchange on many other wallets, many other systems that the new community is building.
I see. So you're in discussions with that. That's great. And you mentioned your demo and your prototype. But what about the GitHub? How active is your team and the developers in that sense?
Yeah, we are really active. We commit code every single day. I mean, it's open for everyone to take a look. Some of the repos are still private because it's not open source kind of ready yet, but it will be soon, especially our UI component and perhaps the off-chain nodes.
Right. Okay.
The node, sorry. Yeah.
Sure. And just with regard to liquidity, I wanted to ask you about that, because obviously there's a huge requisite for liquidity in your market and certainly in your design. So how are you going to address the initial low liquidity issues of simply being a startup in this space? Are you going to utilize some of the capital that you've generated from your initial investments?
Yeah, so that's another thing we cannot really commit on, but if you look at how we break down our capital earned, almost 50% of it is in marketing, right. and the other portion it's mainly in partnerships. So even engineering, it's not a large portion of it.
Sure. Well, if we could talk about something you can talk about a bit more, and that is your team. I'm sure you're very proud of them. So you've got yourself, you've got Henry, you've got Singh and Jack. I think they're your key core, I guess, team members. Just how important are they? Because I have noticed they're quite young in comparison to many teams. What's their experience as well, generally, and what's their skill sets?
Right. They're actually all older than me. So
okay. You all look so young.
Singapore, the sun makes us really good.
That's good. So your experience with your team?
So Henry has worked for me on Payboy previously.
Okay.
And so he's a very experienced backend engineer. Basically the two of us built the whole system on our own. And so right now he focuses on the UI. So all the UI engineering is all done by him. If you go to Switcheo Exchange, that beautiful thing, it's all done in React by Henry. Right now, it's actually working on certain other smart contracts also to support our main exchange. For example, the distribution mechanism for testing our testnet, and a few other smart contracts.
Right. And what about? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So for Ping Chang is our backend engineer. So all the off-chain stuff that you see going on, for example, tracking the order history, making sure that your graphs appear properly. He takes charge of it. He takes charge of it. And Jack he's a jack of all trades. He's a very he's a brilliant UI UX designer. Okay. So the design itself is done by him. We are going to expand his team to support a mobile app, actually.
Right. So obviously you have plans to build out your team. It's quite small now with 5 core members. You have 3 advisors. Are there any other developers or any other team members that aren't listed on your website that we don't know about?
We do have a bunch of people working part-time, but I'm not sure. I'm not sure if I should say that. because they have like full-time jobs, some of them.
But it is good to know that you're engaging with more, because obviously you plan to expand, and that's great. Just in terms of the time you've spent on this project, the reason why I ask is because you've mentioned you've been an entrepreneur for much of your working history, or working, the period of time in which you've been working. But how long have you actually spent on this particular project?
So we started in, I think, November for this project, and interestingly, it was by the NEO competition hosted by City of Zion.
Yes, I was going to ask you about that. You were quite successful also, I understand, at that City of Zion competition.
Yeah, we managed to claim their guest prize, and then we continued building on that. At that point in time, it was I don't think it was even possible to launch a DEX. Was it? Yeah, basically.
And I think it's interesting that we talk about that, because the City of Zion is essentially inherently connected, you could argue, with the next project, because many of the founders of the City of Zion are also involved in the next. The next project. So I guess it's an interesting synergy, given that you are essentially trying to do your own next, and yet you won the competition as Switcheo from City of Zion.
Right.
It must feel pretty good to have done that in that context.
Yeah. So I think the next people are, the City of Zion people are, they're actually a really huge community. So I wouldn't say that every one of them is like somehow involved in next.
No, they're not. But there's certainly a connection, just with some of the founders. So
and so far I think they are supportive of any project that's on the NEO platform. Yes. And I'm also really interested to see how their exchange plays out eventually.
Yes, for sure. Well, if we could talk about your token now for a moment, your Switcheo token. I noticed in the overall design of how you're going, the allocation, I suppose, of tokens for different functions and different people, your private sector were given 48% of the overall distribution of the token. I wanted to ask you why you chose such a large portion for that, because that's quite a lot when you compare that to only 20% for the public.
Right.
That's more than double.
Right. So the thing is, we could have actually raised every single thing, every single cent in the private sale, but we really wanted to expose our exchange to the community and give them a chance to participate as well. So the reason why it's so large is there's two reasons. One is our cap is actually really low compared to other ICOs. So
that would have attracted a lot of private investors into the space, no doubt.
Correct. We really rejected at least basically almost everyone who has approached us. And we only picked really very strategic buyers of our token who will be able to help us later on. And this is really important for our exchange, because exchanges in general, if you combine it with the centralized exchange, it's a very competitive market. And the other thing is also we wanted partners who can help us penetrate the NEO ecosystem, which is it's kind of a close-knit system.
Right. Well, the reason why I asked you is because often we've seen a trend in the past where, when there's a huge proportion of private investors, there's a propensity for some of them, not all of them, to go and dump their tokens. So the pump and dump tends to happen. And there's this, this wave of investment that suddenly declines. And I did want to ask you, are you concerned, given that there is only a 20% stake for the public, are you concerned at all, or have you really genuinely thought about the nature of the investors who are in that sector?
Yeah, I can't really predict what I don't really want to give a prediction of what will happen to prices of the token, etc. But I'm really not concerned about our private partners trying selling or dumping tokens really quickly, because we, as I mentioned earlier, we pick them out really carefully, and all of them are in it for really long-term growth.
Right. Well, I think that's what I was looking for. Hopefully the ones that you have chosen are looking for that long-term investment.
Correct. Well,
if we could talk about now your R&D, so your research and development. I noticed that there's no allocation for that. Have I missed something, or how are you going to, try and provide for future R&D?
Allocation for R&D? What do you mean?
Well, I mean, in terms of how you... your allocation model, how have you allocated some of in your design for that as a part of your plan?
Right. So the 25% lockup, it's not meant to be given to the four of us as I don't know, as like free money. It's actually meant for the team as a whole, whether it's R&D, engineering, etc.
Okay.
It's meant to fund that growth. So
right.
Everything comes there. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think that. Thank you for clearing that up. If we could now talk about fiat for a moment, because that's one of the big assets for, let's say, Nex, in that they're going to integrate fiat. They're going to set up agreements with various services, and I'm sure you're aware. So what's your plan with regard to fiat access?
I can say that we are looking at it also.
Okay.
And there are programs that we are looking at, especially for us locally first in Singapore. And we are looking at being able to eventually do fiat to, say, Neo conversion on our exchange side. Yes. So I don't think I said that publicly before, but it is in the works and in discussion.
Well, I really appreciate that, because the information I'd read didn't indicate that you were going to have that provision. So I think that's a really huge boon for your network, that you're going to set that up, because obviously Nex are. If we could talk about your fees as well, do you have any idea about the fee structure for your trading mechanisms?
Right now, we don't want to implement a fixed structure. So there's a maximum quoted in at 0.5% and a minimum of 0%. And this is on both sides.
Okay.
But after looking at it, most likely we will drop the maker fees entirely, and there will only be fees for the taker. Reason why it's flexible is because we really want to be able to compete on the dime. Like if other exchanges are doing it lower, we will just go low as well.
I see.
Yeah.
And
so if you fix it, yeah, it's going to be very hard to maneuver. Yeah.
Sure. And Ivan, with regard to, you mentioned KYC before, but I noticed in your reading, in your white paper, there's a thing called the DKYC. So what is that, and how is that relevant to your preparedness for compliance and regulation?
Right. So we do have a whitelist that currently is not active for trading for which addresses can trade on our exchange. We are still considering how to move ahead with this. So on one hand, there's compliance that we want to handle well. On the other hand, we also don't want to be the centralized entity that gatekeeps who can trade on this smart contract.
Of course.
Yeah, but we have coded in the ability to interact with other smart contracts. That's why we call it DKYC. Basically, external smart contract can validate the addresses they are trading.
Okay. Now, with regard to sort of more the global scenario of a DEX, obviously there's huge issues with regard to legals, with regard to regulations. So how are you addressing those concerns, given that you're going to have such significant scope and breadth across many different jurisdictions? In terms of your legal framework, have you got a legal team?
So we have a legal team. We have a pretty strong legal team who is very experienced in this. We have a KYC MAL legal framework. We are looking at how we have been looking at how other DXs move forward with this. For example, Kyber, which is actually also a Singapore registered company. So
certainly something in the pipeline that you're addressing.
Correct.
Well, what about your roadmap, Ivan, with regard to that? You've got some exciting things coming up.
Right. So we aren't really driving the hype up because we want to make sure that our bug bounty program goes through correctly. Our audit says our security, we are contracting external security auditors. We want to make sure that they say, okay, this contract, it's good to go.
So you're being cautious.
Yes, correct. So I don't want to guarantee everyone that, okay, 19 March we're going to start trading, and then we need to delay it by a week or so, and then.
Okay. So disclaimer is that it's approximate, and it's approximate. But even then, with an approximate date, it's still a significant, achievement, because you're going to achieve utility, and that's the point. Is that people are going to be able to interact in the real world, on your exchange. That is not yet
Definitely.
happening for some of the others.
Definitely. I think we'll be. We really hope to be one of the first few on the Neo blockchain that has like people actually using our ecosystem, our tokens actively.
Sure. Well, let's move down to Q3 2018. Switcheo DEX potentially on the Ethereum network to utilize ERC20s. Is that the plan?
Yeah. Interestingly, doing it on Ethereum, it's simpler than whatever you're doing now simply because it's a much more mature ecosystem.
Okay.
You're already working on the Qtum and Ethereum system, blockchain, basically the smart contracts for those blockchains.
So that could happen this year as well with the Qtum network?
Yeah, yes, correct. Qtum and Ethereum. So
right. And what about Stellar?
We look at Stellar, but it doesn't really fit a DX model because the blockchain itself is a DX, but it's meant to trade against external, basically off-chain kind of currencies.
Okay.
So that's something we might look at when we're doing the fiat side of things.
Yes, it's excellent for settlements as well.
Right, but not immediately.
Right.
I heard Cardano just had their first ICO, so we'll probably look at that as well.
Oh, wow, so you really are open-minded with the different platforms out there. Ivan Poon, it's been an absolute privilege talking to you. I've learned so much about the Switcheo network. I really have. I understand exactly what you're planning on doing. You are starting on Neo, but certainly by no means are you stopping on Neo. You are a DEX by design. You are arguing that you are one of the very first to utilize the Neo network, if not the first. Is there anything that you wanted to add in this interview, just to connect with the audience about your Switcheo project?
Right. Then you guys can really start testing and then giving us feedback on what you think of the UI UX that we've been hyping up so much on the Switcheo exchange itself.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, it's been a privilege talking to you. Unofficially the CEO of Switcheo, and we appreciate your time today. And hopefully we can talk to you in the future.
Yep, definitely. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you very much.